Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, an official at the heart of the revamped electronic voting system to be used in Kenya's upcoming polls is found tortured and killed. Also, Congo police arrest over 100 protesters as they crack down on marches across the country in which demonstrators call for President Joseph Kabila to leave power. And in South Africa, a pair of white farmers who allegedly forced a black man into a coffin and threatened to pour petrol over him plead not guilty on the first day of their kidnap and attempted murder trial. But first, the man in charge of Kenya's new electronic voting system has been found tortured and murdered a week and a half before the 10th general election. Christopher Msando had been reported missing just days before his body was found on the outskirts of Nairobi over the weekend. Kenyans will choose lawmakers and their next president on August 8th. The race between incumbent Uhuru Kenyatta and veteran challenger Raila Odinga is close and has seen both camps accuse each other of underhand tactics. There are fears that Msando's death could further erode confidence in the credibility of the election. Caroline Thompson has more.
The potential consequences of this could be great. So the first is that the IEBC has asked for greater security measures to look after the people who are the ones responsible for managing the election results. As well, there are a lot of concerns right now. The election is very tense, and there are worries that if something small happens, it could ignite violence like happened in 2007. And finally, Msando was the person in charge of managing the ICT, the method in which the results would be transmitted on the day of the election. And he may have known confidential information that was involved in that process of getting the results to this location. The IEBC chairman earlier today said that there was evidence that his body had been tortured. So now there's a lot of speculation that perhaps something that he knew could have been released, compromising the results. So the question now is whether or not this discovery will have an effect on August 8th's election.
Caroline Thompson there for us. Well, staying with Kenya, memories of post-electoral bloodshed there 10 years ago feed into tension surrounding the August 8th vote. Many victims of the violence suffered a decade ago still struggle with their physical and psychological trauma. Our correspondents report.
More than an hour from the nearest town, these fields house the last victims of the 2007 post-election crisis. Those who live here had to flee their lands. The government gave Rose this house as compensation. Her previous life, when she owned a small business, feels very far away.
Before, we had access to everything, water, food. We didn't have to walk far to have all that. Here, life is hard. There's no water. We can't feed ourselves properly. There's no work. Politicians come here and promise all kinds of things, but they never really do anything for us.
The government says it has dealt with the situation, but across the country, victims are expressing their frustration. In response, the opposition has made it a key part of its platform. For Jacqueline Mutere, the president is using the victims to win the election instead of compensating them as he had promised.
And we thought that that was going to be the hope for a lot of the IDPs and a lot of the survivors of sexual violence. But that hasn't been the case right now. Even during his campaigns, he has been dishing out money to in certain areas where there are IDPs, and we perceive that as bribery.
Mutere, a victim of rape in 2007, runs an association that fights to bring awareness to the victims of the election crisis. Today, she is visiting Elizabeth, who was gang raped and is now HIV positive.
We are trying to look for His Excellency, the President. I don't know if we've written letters to him. No response. Our government has never acknowledged sexual gender-based violence.
In light of these accusations, the government declined our requests for an interview. To show their discontent, some victims have called for people to boycott the election on August 8th.
Look now at some news in brief. Senegal's ruling coalition is claiming to have won Sunday's legislative election by a landslide. BBY says it swept all except 3 of the 45 electoral departments. Some voters have complained of having been left off the electoral rolls. Official results are expected later this week, but a win by the group would bolster President Macky Sall's prospects of re-election in 2019. Nigerian gay rights activists warn that the arrest of more than 40 men at a private event in Lagos where counselling and testing for HIV was on offer could set back efforts to raise awareness of the risks of sexually transmitted diseases. Police say the group was detained on Saturday and are accused of performing homosexual acts. Same-sex relationships were criminalised in Nigeria in 2014. It has the highest rate of HIV in West and Central Africa. Former Malawian President Joyce Banda has denied any wrongdoing after she became the subject of an arrest warrant over alleged abuse of office and money laundering. The charges were part of a wider corruption scandal covered in 2013 that led to international donors suspending aid to the country. Police say that Monday's order was issued because investigators have reportedly unearthed credible evidence against Banda, who led the country for 2 years from 2012. In Democratic Republic of Congo, at least 128 people were reportedly arrested on Monday following a series of anti-government marches across the country. Protesters have been demanding elections and that President Joseph Kabila leave power by the end of the year. Thomas Nicoulon has more.
The idea was a peaceful march all over DR Congo to demand elections before the end of the year, but the authorities prevented this march from taking place. According to the youth movements that organized the march, freedom of speech is not guaranteed in DR Congo, but according to the authorities, this march was not properly organized.
The authorities clearly wanted to prevent us from marching. We had started to march peacefully, but the police came to stop us and arrested some of us. We're determined to carry on our fight in a peaceful, non-violent and civic manner.
They can't just do whatever they want without letting the authorities know. They were being disruptive in the streets. They must be accompanied by security forces all along the way. If they don't let us know, then we have to remove them from public places in order to question them and to make sure they do things properly next time.
Clashes broke out in the city of Goma between police and demonstrators, whereas in Bukavu, demonstrators were dispersed by the police. According to the agreement that was reached in December 2016, the election is due to be held before the end of 2017, but back in early July, the chairman of the Electoral Commission announced that this would be impossible due to security reasons.
In South Africa, a pair of white farmers who allegedly forced a black man into a coffin and threatened to pour petrol over him pled not guilty on the first day of their trial at the Delma High Court. The defendants are accused of kidnap, assault and attempted murder.
The video of two white men forcing black worker Victor Lotchwa into a coffin went viral and shocked South Africa. One man is heard saying he will put petrol and a snake inside the coffin. On Monday, Theo Jackson and Willem Osthuizen pleaded not guilty. They stood trial on charges of kidnap, assault and attempted murder. The men said the coffin was a scare tactic used on the farm to dissuade thieves from entering the property. Lotchwa said he had simply taken a shortcut across the farm. Members of South Africa's two main political organisations, the ruling ANC party and the opposition movement DA, did outside the High Court. Their aim was to raise awareness against racial prejudice in the country.
We want to see these white farmers get a life sentence because we are tired of them abusing black people in rural areas.
We reject discrimination. So we also trust in the justice of our law, and also we trust in our judges, obviously. That's why we have the courts and the judges. So whichever outcome we will take it as it is.
This case is a reminder that racism is still deeply entrenched in South Africa 23 years after the end of white minority apartheid rule.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again if you can. Take care.